What's up, guys? Ronin Man here. Hey, we got a little special episode here. We're going to talk about very serious topic, investing. And I think you will find this is going to be the most unique investment episode or podcast you've ever heard. So it's going to go places you will not expect. And I think I want to spill as much good information with angles I've never heard before, but I learned from doing investment banking in real estate and meeting the people that I met. And I have an expert real estate person here, Spencer. Say hi.
Hey everyone.
What's happening?
Everything good?
Yeah. And a little bit, describe yourself a little bit.
So I am a real estate broker based in Southern California, working primarily in what we would call global real estate, inbound and outbound. So buyers buying and investing in the United States, as well as buyers from United States investing outside of the United States.
Yeah, and Spencer knows a lot. So we're not selling anything here. We're not pitching anything. We're giving you ideas and basically ways to think about. And potentially in the future, some guys can get together. We might do something. Might take some action based on these ideas. But we're definitely not pitching anything. This all started because of somebody right here.
Yo, guys, it's Fox. We're here in Bangkok having another great weekend, just enjoying life. And it started because we were Ronin and I were getting breakfast and everything, and I was talking to him. It's like as I continue to build my life, as I work hard, as I save up money, like what's the best investment I can do, and what's the way I should go think about this? Like really, what's the best thing to do when you get some real money? And that really started this whole conversation.
Yeah, like we kind of had this conversation earlier today, and then, Fox and I were talking, and it's too bad we didn't record it, but so basically let's try to recreate as much as we can here of this. Yeah. So what were the key points there?
Yeah, so I have some cool guys that I work with, and they one of them owns 40 properties, and they have been encouraging me to invest in like a duplex and invest into real estate. And I was thinking about this, and I kind of brought the subject up to you, Ronin, and then you mentioned like there's two like totally different types of investing and looking at it. And there's the retail investing that most people think about. They get a house, or maybe they invest in stocks or something. And you were telling me like there's a whole nother way to look at it, and you can be investing in business and get to a level of investment in a way in doing it that's totally different. And that's what I want to learn from you in this video.
Okay, all right. So yeah, basically, like, I guess the way to think about it, the concepts will make sense to you. So you have, I guess, let's think about diamonds, right? So you could buy a diamond from a store, right? You walk in, Costco, whatever. They have a manufactured diamond. It's ready to go. It's got a ring. It has a certain size, has a certain carat. Everything is known about that, right? There's like a competitive price, but it's going to be jacked up because everything's already done. All the work, the thinking's been done. The work's been done. The design has been done. So you're kind of coming in as a sucker. Once you buy that thing, it's kind of worth, I don't know what percentage diamonds are. Let's say you buy a diamond ring.
They're marked up pretty heavily already.
You shed it.
Yes.
They're marked up heavily, but it's even worse than that, because if you buy a diamond, let's say you walk into a store, buy a diamond ring. So let's say you spend $2,000. If you walk right out of there and try to sell it, I'd be surprised if you can get $500 for that.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I would be shocked if you can get like 25% of what you just invested 10 seconds ago.
And same with cars. You drive it off the lot, you lose 25% or more instantly.
Well, I'm saying you lose 75%.
Yeah, with a diamond or jewelry, yeah.
So that's the kind of thing, like I knew a girl who was trying to sell her diamond ring because she was getting divorced.
Right.
And she was like so shocked because nobody even wanted it for anything. Mm-hmm. I think it cost like $100,000. It was really expensive. And I think her offer was like $6,000 or something. And she was like,
crying.
Yeah, she was totally depressed, And it's like, I think that's the kind of thing. It's like when let's say you're thinking about mining diamonds. you're down in South Africa, you're looking at dirt, someone's telling you about there's diamonds in there, you're digging in the soil and you're trying to find, what's in here, and then you find one little diamond and then you find another, and then you can get an expert to calculate how many diamonds could be possibly in this area, and then you have a digging expert who decides which direction the diamonds go, and then you're basically buying the land or leasing the land in order to mine diamonds. When you do that, obviously, if you make a good decision, you can make a shit ton of money. These are basically the two ways of thinking about investment. One is just buying it retail off the shelf. So when you buy Walmart stock, when you buy, in the same category, I would say, when you buy a house. So a developer, the plumber charged extra, he charged money, and then also he jacks it up. And then the painter, everything gets jacked up. Everything is designed, it's already packaged for you. Whereas when you buy a piece of land and you envision a development of houses, you have a huge upside, right? And then most people, they never get to the area where they're buying something that's in the rough. You're taking something that isn't done yet. There's no, it's not designed for you. And you're trying to figure out what could this do, what could this be? And then you're cleaning it up, fixing it up, deciding how much this has to have here and how high you can go up, and getting somebody, you're in a totally different category. So I guess that's the thing, packaged up investments suck. You're a sucker. When you buy a house, how much can you really make on that house? In California these days, you're probably gonna fucking lose at today's prices. Like, seriously.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of upkeep and carry costs.
Yeah, you buy a house, are you gonna rent it out and make a profit in Southern California right now?
It'd be pretty low cap rates compared to other possible locations, yes.
Or it's gonna be negative.
Yep.
Basically, you're hoping on capital appreciation. Now, here's one thing I learned. We're dealing with institutional investors. So I worked in a very boutique, small agency. We were one of basically 4 in the world that were at this level. We would sell $50 to $100 million properties to investment funds and pools of capital from the Middle East, and also REITs. REITs bought from us, real estate investment trusts, $50 to $100 million. And those guys, the first thing I learned is I said to them, I think that this thing could be worth more in the future. And then they would look at me like I'm an idiot. They're like, basically, son, we don't deal in dreams. We only deal in reality. What's the cash flow? Like, I want to make money every month. I want money to come from them to me every month.
What is existing and guaranteed.
That's right.
Yeah.
What, including all the costs. And also, they also taught me about a lot of the things like a vacancy rate. So they said, you need to calculate 15% vacancy. Even if you have tenants like Starbucks or McDonald's, you still you include a vacancy rate, because statistically over time, things are going to happen where you're going to be empty.
Yep.
Whereas like retail investors, they never think about that. Everything is based on hopes and dreams and futures, and they don't like numbers. Yep. They say, well, I love this house, right? My wife loves this house. Anytime you hear that, you should fucking run. Yeah, that's what you don't want to hear. Is what you want to hear is like, it's got a 2 cap. It's it's a 2 cap, 3 cap, 4 cap. Right.
But you're all too low. You're looking for a 10 cap.
Well, no, but the best investments have low caps. The ones that the Class A buildings in Tokyo, they're going to have like a 2 cap or something like that. It depends on the city. London is going to be low for the Class A. So that one is a little. It depends on who you are, what cap rate you want. So the cap rate that's let's go into that later. But basically, when it comes to investments, smart investors let's just call them institutional investors for now. They want profit from day one. So and they want to calculate real costs. So they don't say, oh, my brother's going to manage it. Fuck that. Your brother's not going to manage it. A management company is going to manage it. And they have fees that are published. And they're not going to give you a deal. Okay, you calculate the real price of management to get a real manager. And then you include that. Most guys don't like to include this because they're never going to get a profit in the end. So these institutional investors, they want a 15% vacancy. That means it's going to be 15% more you have to make to break even, right? To make a profit. And so the same thing with the painter. You're not going to paint it. There's going to be a painter. So you call a painter and say, how much to repaint this? And the other thing is, my clients would spend $100,000 to do due diligence. So every time they made an offer, so they would look at a property, they were very careful about getting serious about a property, because before they started to really talk about that, they had to spend $100,000, and then that guy would go at the property, he would look at all the lines in the property, do the lines in the documentation match reality, or was there? So often you'll buy a property, but you'll find out something later was not true. So you actually don't own this part of the property. That is actually owned by somebody else.
Property lines are off. And
Yeah,
all that, yes.
property lines are off. There could be, for example, something that's been dumped there that costs a lot of money to clean up. So that's what their job is, due diligence. They find out is, what are you really dealing with here? Was there a gas station here before? You know, is there some kind of poisonous substance? Is there some poison? Is there going to clean up necessary? Are all the lines correct? Is everything that the salesman telling you true? When a retail investor looks at something, they don't even think about this stuff. They read the brochure, and then the guy's already done the work for you, basically, most of the time. You know, in the States, you can sue him. But basically, he's done everything that, as a real investor, as an institutional investor thinking, you need to do it yourself. Make sure everything is true. Make sure you know what you're buying. Because often there's things like we found in Tokyo. There would be a line that everybody thought was the line. And when they actually went to the original maps, they found out that it wasn't true. Have you seen that? Have you heard of that?
Yep. So in certain areas in the U.S., California is a little bit better, but certain other areas outside of California, we hear of basically stories where people buy larger properties and then come later on when they want to build something, or there's a dispute with the neighbor or something like that, they find out that the lines are off by maybe a couple of feet in their favor or not in their favor, and these cause big headaches because sometimes they've already built something and it's in the wrong section, and sometimes they have to be forced to be torn down, which kind of sucks. There was another story, this was probably 5+ years ago. Basically the project, I believe it was in Texas somewhere, basically two owners purchased lots to build custom homes, and when it came time to build one of the owners basically started building, they built on the wrong lot. So they basically built on their neighbor's lot. So the neighbor just got a free house. So that kind of took a lot of work to basically correct, and pretty much what had to happen was they had to swap the lots and basically compensate for basically the mess that the neighbor that built the house caused for the other one that basically was just holding land. So that kind of sucked, I think.
Wow. What was the original cause? Just stupidity? Or was it something in the documentation?
I have no idea what happened. So
right.
It might have just been that the builder didn't do their due diligence to make sure that the lot they were building on was the correct lot that basically was in the documentation, or it could have just been a title error, something like that. Yeah.
That's like taking out the wrong kidney.
Yeah.
You know, or like
big oops.
The wrong testicle. Your testicle is now successfully removed, sir. Oh.
The right one?
Yeah. No, the left one.
How many times do I have to say the right one?
How many testicles do I have? Let's see now. 1, 2. Yeah.
Well, we thought you meant the right one as in the left one, which had
Yeah,
pain. The right one!
The correct one is what we thought you meant. Not the right one. Yeah. So we took out the left one. Exactly. And this kind of stupid shit, happens, right? And so that's part of the thing is like double, triple checking. things that you're sure are true. Because when they built that, nobody stopped them. But I'm sure nobody noticed until later, right? It wasn't like the guy getting a free house and knew that. He was just, he on vacation somewhere or working somewhere. Then he comes back, there's a fucking house on his lot. He's
What's
like,
going on?
he's like, oh, we got a deal, Right. So that's the thing. I was shocked. I guess for me as a young man or a younger man, I was shocked by how cold and how like they only looked at the numbers. So my job was to find properties in Tokyo, but the other thing was to crunch the numbers. So to show the potential buyer the numbers. So I had to get good at numbers, which I hate, but I did do it, and I was able to do it. But that was like my job. 2 jobs: just find the property, do the numbers, and then to get out of the way. Because my boss, his job was to bring the buyer. Right. So that was when I got out of the room and let them do the deal. Right? So let's think about this. So when you look at investors, okay, this is just my opinion after working in that business. I think most investors are jokers. Like they're basically morons. Anybody who's buying a house because sunlight comes from it's facing south, or this is my favorite fucking shade, or it's got solar panels, or any of this bullshit is just like moron. Investment is about return, right? And return is about guaranteed return. You want to make money, whether it's good weather or bad weather or wars, or like good business environment or stock market crash. You want to make money. So, for example, if you invest, or you're a REIT, invest in a large property, say with multi-units, anywhere from, it could be up to 1,000, right? But the more units there are, the lower risk you have. So if you have one house, let's say you buy a $10 million house, and then you rent it out to a rich guy. Sounds great. The problem is, what if the fucking guy moves out?
You'll be vacant half a year or more.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find one tenant like that.
It's difficult to find the tenant, and that year wipes out all your profits from 10 years when you're empty for a year. So you can absolutely ruin your business by miscalculating, misjudging, picking the wrong type of property. I like small properties and lots of them. So like student properties, so multi-units near a college. I like colleges because kids go to school every year.
Constant demand.
They're constantly coming every year. And the parents have money. I also like the ones where the guy using the room doesn't pay for it. Somebody else pays for it.
Corporate housing.
Corporate housing or student housing. So the parents pay for it. So the student can't afford it, but the parents can. So that's very good. I like those kind of things.
Yeah.
Because it's much more reliable. If you, for example, let's say you're selling a language study course, and then I'm trying to sell you a language study course. It's very difficult because you're going to have very strict requirements. Now, if your dad, okay, so let's say Spencer's your dad, you're buying a course because you want him to learn Spanish, you're going to be easy to convince because you don't really know what it takes. All you know is you want your son to study Spanish. Okay, so I say that, Spencer, this is the best one. Kids learn the best with this one. It's hard, but it's the best one, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh yeah, no problem. Get that one. And then you pay with your credit card. Then then you give it to the son. The son's like, never gets around to it. That's a good business. Whereas
Rinse and repeat and keep on doing it.
Right. Whereas when the son wants to study, he's going to study every goddamn thing in the world before he parts with his money. He works at McDonald's, right? Yeah. He makes like $6 an hour.
He's going to YouTube it.
He's going to YouTube the shit out of it. He's going to use the torrents. He's going to be cheap as fuck. And then he's going to try a million things and finally find the one that works. And he won't even pay for that one. Or he might, buy it somewhere, a copyright. So when students are paid by their parents, that's always good, reliable money. They want them to go for 4 years, they're going to pay, right? Because because it's not just living, it's education in the future.
Yeah.
So I love those kind of things. So there's the complex. You can see the difference, right? Someone can easily move out of a regular apartment. If there's hundreds of them and there's 10, you just go to the next one, right?
Yep.
But the student, they can't change. They got this university. It's right next door.
Yep.
They're going to live there. You know, they want to walk over there. All their friends are there. You know, they're going to be too drunk to go drive. They're going to fucking go there, right? No one's moving anywhere. You're going to stay there for 4 years, right? Or 2 years at least, right?
And what's good with student housing is if it's basically a roommate situation, you have multiple sets of parents that are basically guaranteeing the rent.
Right.
So if one of the roommates moves out, and that's their own issue on their side, but basically the parents are guaranteeing it for the entire unit, not just for the portion that moved out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like a parent's love. A parent's love, right? They want their kids to succeed so bad. They're like, we will take the risk
Yep.
that usually other people will take.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure our kid can go to school here.
Yep.
He's going to get his little degree. Grandma's going to be happy. Everybody's going to be happy. And then we can wash our hands. We did our job. He got his Harvard degree or whatever, right? So there you go. That's good thinking there.
And that'd be similar. So on commercial real estate side, what we used to sell a lot of is what we would call triple net retail.
Triple net. I love triple net.
So, but not a single tenant, because you go back to the same problem. If it's vacant for a long time. You kill your earnings for multiple years. We like to sell what we would call like a small strip center. So maybe 4 units to 8 units with one or multiple, what we would call a corporate guarantee. So corporate guarantee is kind of like that parent guaranteeing the student's rent. So for instance, a Starbucks store, a lot of those basically have a corporate guarantee saying if the franchisor, if they don't pay, Starbucks umbrella corporation that runs the franchise, they basically will pick it up. So those are very, very safe. However, on the flip side,
lower profit,
yes, which we discussed earlier.
Lower cap rate.
But like Paul was mentioning, it's very steady cap rate, which is good.
Yes.
The other flip side,
unless McDonald's goes bankrupt, you're going to get paid.
Yep. And then the other downside potentially is with commercial real estate, you have very set, basically lease term.
Yes.
And lease options. So for instance, they might have signed the initial 3-year term and 2 3-year options. So that's a potential of 9 years potential. If they don't renew, that basically is going to be a vacant unit and potentially vacant for half a year to 1 year.
Right.
Again,
you have to keep it open for them. And then if they leave, you're like, shit.
Yep. And again,
this looks like a Del Taco.
Yep.
And McDonald's doesn't want to move in.
Exactly.
So it looks like
the unit's very
Wiener
specific
Schnitzel
for the current tenant,
and
a new tenant has to do a lot of changes.
Right.
So what happens is a lot of the commercial landlords, they have to give what's called a TI allowance, which is a tenant improvement allowance, and that could be basically half a year of free rent. So in addition to the half year to 1 year that you already lost from vacancy, you might have to give up half a year of rent for them to basically do their own modifications. The other is basically you don't do that, but you basically give them credit, which could be a huge amount of credit, and basically you're paying to build whatever their customizations are, which later on, maybe if you sign again another 3-year term, if they moved out after 3 years, you just paid a lot of money for their renovations, which only lasted 3 years effectively.
Right.
So there's some risks with commercial real estate, of course.
But if you have a large like Wiener Schnitzel on top, you could open a gay bar. So there are other options that you could
be creative,
somehow
yes.
make use of that. You know, that.
Well, Dick and Bounce.
That's right.
Dick and Bounce ice cream.
You got to be flexible. You know, you got to. But exactly. Like there's triple net leases they're a good investment. I think the problem with triple net is that it's just so conservative. Because you might have like in Tokyo, a triple net might have a 1.5 cap. So it's a very low rate of return.
It is.
But it's super consistent and it's money in the bank. So maybe a retirement fund might do that. You know, a guy our age, probably not. You know, like I personally, triple net is just too low for me, even though it is very consistent. and it's good to know about. It's good to know that it exists.
And then something else to consider is a lot of institutional or more experienced investors, they're not specifically looking for highest cap rate per se.
Yes.
So a lot of them will take out on a commercial, it's called debt service, which is basically your mortgage for commercial lending.
Yeah.
Any of your interest that's paid towards that loan basically can be written off on taxes, and then you can depreciate the real estate. Usually right now it's 20 to 25 year depreciation period. Current situation, if Trump gets his way, it might be decreased to 4-year depreciation period. So you get 25% basically depreciation each year. So if you're talking about $1 million property,
Yeah.
you have a paper loss of $250,000 depreciation every year, even if you are making money. So for larger investors, if they have multiple properties and they are making money on other properties, you can leverage basically your paper loss from your new purchase,
Nice.
which might not be making as much money, but
Right.
you're leveraging it because it has that huge paper loss potential.
Right.
So there's other things that are at play, not necessarily just the
Depreciation,
the true
schedules,
cash flow
yeah.
on it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why Japanese. Me and I was working with this guy, Dr. Bungo Ishizaki, in Tokyo, and we together was Bill Bungo and I would devise this plan for Japanese to invest in wooden structures in America because
Yep.
the
They're
Japanese
special,
tax, the way the Japanese tax is written, is you can depreciate very quickly if it's a wooden structure, because in Japan, wooden structures fall apart. They're built to fall apart. And so you can depreciate them quickly. In the US, they're not. You have wooden structures that are 100 years old.
Or more.
Yeah, or more. So the Japanese could invest in US wooden buildings, and then they could write off a bunch of profit
Yes.
very quickly and it was good for tax. People that were making a lot of money would buy into our scheme there. And it was good for the US market because money came flowing in, and they didn't care what Japanese did with their taxes. And it was a loophole. It was a loophole. And it was a smart loophole because it was just lowering taxes for Japanese investors, helping the US market, and also giving Japanese investors opportunities to invest in dollar-based assets that had advantages over
A
Japanese
certain
stuff.
thing with Japan, and Paul can probably confirm, is Japan, the interest rates are super cheap. So
Super
they
low,
were pulling
yeah.
out basically loans at maybe 1% or 2%
Yes.
effectively.
Yes.
And basically earning against that potentially at that 5 to 10% range.
Yeah. So they were killing it in the U.S. market,
Yeah.
and that was very successful, that scheme. So there are things you can do, obviously, and invest in. There's many ways to look at it, right? There's many ways to look at it. But I think the retail and institutional way is the best way, as a general rule. Is this a retail investment with a bunch of people suckers, or is this an entrepreneur type investment where I'm having to make a lot of decisions myself and decide everything myself, and then I have opportunities to make more money, to really do something? Has everybody sucked it dry? Is this a girl who slept with everybody and I want to get married to, or do I want a virgin? Right? I want to get where there's fucking juice in there, right?
It's like
You know what I mean?
picking
Yeah.
the nerdy girl, at school that
Right.
you're like, she's gonna be hot. I can tell. She's
Yeah.
a good girl.
Right.
Or you go for the, 40-year-old prom queen,
Tattooed up.
yeah, who's
Fucking-
already divorced and has a kid, but she was
Right.
a total beauty queen back
Right.
in the day. And the average retail guy was like, yeah, go for the hot one now. But the price is already way up. Where the kind of nerdy girl, she's just happy that someone likes her and is
True, and
hanging
you're-
out. And
No,
she's
no.
down for whatever,
No, my friend was dating this girl who was very thin, right, in junior high. And then he could see in her something. And when she got to high school, her boobs just exploded. And she became the hottest thing around. And he was already dating her, right? So he had her, right? And they dated. And he looks back now, he's one of the best. You're the hottest girl in high school.
Best investment.
She ended up being a super fucking, I forgot what she did. She was she really had a killer rack, so she actually became something, right? And he could see that there was potential in her, right? So you're looking at potential in things, right? And I think that okay, so let's talk about other general concepts that I learned that will give you maybe the right, I think of them as glasses, like a pair of glasses to wear to look at the world. So first, you want to see that most people are suckers. Like they're just buying things that have already been jacked up. All the profit's already gone. All that's left is the risk. So you're putting the money down and you got the risk, right? They've already made the money. Like when they sell you a house, everybody's been paid. Except you. You're the one paying out everybody. That is fucked up. That is so fucked up. So another thing you could think about is, okay, so for example, here's a concept I learned that was very interesting. I'll listen to you guys. So for example, I started working for this firm, right? And we were looking for properties. We were looking for properties that were, let me think here clearly. I was looking at those girls. Yeah, a little bit distracted there. And also,
That's a good example.
using the camera there too, zooming up there. Okay, so let's say you're an institutional investor. Institutional investors are they going to build things? No.
Usually no,
Fuck no.
unless that's their buy box.
Well, there are people with that kind of a charter, but usually institutional investors, no. Here's what they want. Here's my clients. And this was very, 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 very educational for me. So basically, they want the best for the cheapest price.
That's everyone,
Okay.
yes.
Basically, no, they really want it. I mean, these guys are, I think
That's all my past Chinese buyers.
that's basically, okay. No, but they're smart enough to do it too. Everybody wants things, right?
Yeah.
But these real smart investors, they get them.
Yeah.
They have ways to get them.
Yeah.
So here's what they would, for example, tell me to do. My job was to find, okay, and this is a very interesting concept, actually. Okay, I had to find basically Class A buildings. So a Class A building is a type of level of construction. A Class A building has certain width of escalators, width of stairways, elevators, doorways. You know, there's certain things that you legally have to have.
And construction age and how well upgraded it is inside.
And the wiring,
maintenance, yeah.
the wiring. Well, these were new.
Yeah.
These
Okay,
were
okay,
buildings.
okay.
These were buildings under construction.
Okay, got it.
So they wanted something. So in Tokyo, a lot of the buildings you can't insure with an international. So Americans can't even buy them because the wiring is it's such a rabbit's, it's such a bird's nest that nobody will insure
Knows
it.
what's going on?
Because it could catch on fire. But now the Japanese used to love them because they had high cap rates. But the foreign investors said no. The insurance companies will not cover it because the insurance companies say no. Like that, the stairwell is not legal. How the fuck can we insure this?
Yeah.
The wiring is weird. Now the Japanese, they were more flexible and said, hey, we can find a way to look around this, get around this, and then they would make more profit on building. But here's the thing, the foreigners, what they did was they were like vultures. So they found buildings, and this is my job. So my main job was to find Class A buildings under construction, almost completed, but not completed because of some problem. So I walked around Tokyo, drove my motorcycle around, looked for buildings that just looked like they were not quite finishing. The other thing I had to look for was, and this was very difficult to think, even to consider the idea, but when I understood the idea, I actually was extremely good at this. And if this deal would have gone through, my boss told me you'd be on the cover of Business Week. I found a building like this. So what my other what do you call it, charter was to find a property that was built improperly. Okay, what I mean by that is, let's say it was a large structure. Okay, let's say there's 1,000 rooms. Now, it was a luxury apartment, Now, every train station in Japan has a certain amount of people that can afford a luxury apartment. And you can't build more than that. Because people don't drive, they take the train. So everyone's going to take the train. And there's a certain amount of cheap properties, certain amount of luxury properties, certain amount of middle properties. And people that buy luxury properties are willing to walk a certain distance. Now, every type of person in Japan wears different shoes. Now, guys that have money have women. This is all was told to me, and I figured it out. I found a property. So he said, women that date guys that have money wear high heels more than girls that work in McDonald's. So girls that wear high heels can only walk so far. So he said, your job is to find a property under construction that's not quite done, that has some kind of financial problem, and was built like with too many units, so that they plan poorly. Okay, basically, they miscalculate. So I was driving around Tokyo, walking around Tokyo. You know me, like I always walk around. I'm walking and looking, walking and looking, walking and looking. So finally I went to the Costco headquarters, right? And I was just hanging out, and I was talking to some guys I know, and I was left there, and I was walking around. I saw this luxury building under construction. I could tell it was luxury because of the construction methods. So it wasn't done yet, but I could see that it was made with higher quality, higher roofs, you know, better quality windows. It was better, and it was big. So there was 11 large, they call them large resis, so large residential towers. Now you got 11 towers, luxury, and it was a 15-minute walk from the station. So I thought, fuck, this is it. So I went to the sales room, because they always have a room where the guy's sitting there, right, when the building's under, you know, it's already being sold. And I said to the guy, I said, look, we represent foreign banks. We're looking for something, you know, basically like your building that we think is perhaps overbuilt for the quality of the price. And he looked at me like I was insane. So he goes, you are crazy, basically. Get out of our office, basically. So I was like, okay, thank you. And I left. Now 2 weeks later, who calls me?
That guy.
That same guy. And he said, hey, by the way, he goes, sorry about the way I kicked you out of the office. He goes, I had to do that because you kind of broke a Japanese rule. You're not supposed to tell the company they're wrong to their face. But he goes, I understand why you did it. You know, you're looking for a certain property, but we couldn't let that be said in public. So he said, look, you're absolutely right about everything you said. He goes, and we are willing to talk about selling 2 of the units, 2 of the structures. So then we put together an offer. We made an offer on paper, spent the $100,000 on the due diligence, made an offer on paper, $63 million, and that was a huge success for me. It was the biggest one in our company's history, and it wasn't bullshit. When people say, we got an offer, if that thing has not done due diligence, it's not in writing, it ain't a fucking offer. The guy says, oh, I got a job offer. The guy told me. You don't have a fucking job offer. A job offer is a contract. Here is your contract. Here are your days off. Here is your insurance. Here is what we expect of you. You know, here is your starting date. Here is this. Do you want to sign? That is a job offer. So I learned a lot from this job. Because before, I thought a job offer was when the guy tells me, you know, we want to hire you. You know, you can start this date. It's all fucking verbal. That means fuck all to me now. It's like, show me in writing. No, I'm not going to say show me in writing, because if the guy's full of shit, he's not going to do it anyway. But I know in my mind it might not be real. So I'm waiting for the guy to say, wait, we value you. We'll have the contract ready tomorrow. Come in and have a look and decide what you want to do. And then you come in and look at it. There it is. You negotiate a couple deals. I don't want to start in November. I want to start in September. You know, could I do this? Could I add this? You know, is it possible to get my wife on the insurance? Whatever. And then you hash out the final details. They make a new contract. They give it in writing, and you go down and read it. Everything is accurate. All the changes have been implemented that they said they would, and then you sign it. that's a successful deal. So it's the same with real estate. Real estate there's a big difference between talk in real estate and action.
Yep.
And this is one of the biggest problems people have, is they get so excited about all the possibilities that they don't understand that everything that's real is written down. So you gotta have it written down. You gotta be dealing with people that are capable of writing it down, right? A lot of times the guy you're talking to, he's not even capable of making the fucking decision.
No, not the decision maker.
He's
or
not
the person that signs.
Right, he's not the guy who signs, right? So for example, now let's get back into that building. So what else did I learn from that building? Okay, so my hands are tired here. Okay, let's see here. It's okay. So what else did I learn? So one is that we were looking for a very difficult to find, very high quality building where somebody else was getting fucked. But it was kind of a can't be helped situation. They built too much, it's too late. We're coming in and saving the day, basically. We're coming in, here's the money. You can keep your buildings the way you wanted. We're gonna buy these two. Then, now, let's say you buy those buildings. Did you win? No, you lost. Because the building's overbuilt. So the purpose of those buildings is the purpose of those buildings. The design, the reason why they want to sell it, basically. You're buying something that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that. What the funds that I worked with, what they said was, we want to see what you have and then just give it to us. And then we'll think about it. So what they did was, this is what blew me away. They said, what we want to do with the two buildings you showed us is we want to take them, and right now you're selling condominiums. They're selling 9 towers condominiums. We want to buy the two, and we want to turn them into corporate, long-term, basically like, almost like long stay hotels for corporations. Okay, so that means changing a lot of things. A lot of things. So for example, with a residential tower, what do you want? You want it quiet. You don't want anybody to come. You got privacy. You don't want anybody coming there. You don't want any strangers, right? You want just the people, the owners.
Yeah.
That's all you want. Now, what do you want with a long stay building? Well, let's say you're staying there for 2 months. You're a corporate executive. What do you want? You want a fucking restaurant.
Yeah, you want to have everything there.
That's right.
That you possibly
cool
want.
amenities that would match with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want a place to eat. You want a place to drink coffee. You want a place to meet your friend. You want a place to take a girl before you take her upstairs. You want a lot of things, right? So, well, what they did was they would take the basic design of the house, of the building, and then they said, okay, look, we need what's called an anchor tenant. So that's like a Starbucks. Now the Starbucks is going to bring people in 7 days a week. Okay, which means more people, which means businesses can survive. Businesses can survive means corporate executives, they're not going to keep the business in business, but they need to use it. So you need other people to come in to make it, viable for the business to operate so that the corporate people can use it. So that's the balance you want. So that's what they wanted. So they got a Starbucks in there. Then they got, a dry clean. They got this. The first floor is now full of things. Looks like this. It's like kind of like almost like a mall feeling. Then you go into the elevators, totally different world. Quiet, private, and you need a key card. But but it's on top of this building. So they took this building that was a commercial property, that was a residential tower, turned it into a vibrant, very profitable, basically a money machine. Now here was the other thing I learned. It was very interesting. So with condos, you're looking for buyers. Okay, now with short-term rental, what do you want? You want short-term renters, but nobody specializes in short-term renters. Where do you find short-term renters? Short-term renters are going to come from software.
Yeah.
So there's basically these online brokers, or basically what they do is they funnel leads. Basically, someone searches on a company like Agoda, and they're looking for a room. in this area. Now this is for a different kind of thing, but it's the same idea. It's basically a booking system. So you can book a room. So let's say you're booking from a client's perspective. You're booking a room tonight in Aspen. Do you care that it used to be a residential tower? No. All you care about is how close is it to ski resorts, right? What's the price? Location and price. You really don't care about too much else. Now, you also want other things too, but basically, you're going to go through. Do you want to talk directly to the building? No. You want to just book the room and go there and everything's done.
Yeah, peace of mind.
Yeah, peace of mind. You just want it simple.
Yeah.
Pay with your credit card. Do you want to deal with a landlord that only takes cash and is going to hand you the key? No. You just want to fucking book the room, go there, come in at any time of day or night, walk in there privately, no one says hi, get in your room, do your duty. So the corporate long-term rental booking sites, basically, if you guys have heard of a company called Oakwood. So we dealt with Oakwood a lot. So Oakwood basically was a spin-off of Lehman Brothers, which my boss was the acquisitions director for Lehman Brothers. So we had all the Lehman connections. So basically what we did is we sold buildings to Oakwood. And then Oakwood would sell them back to us. We'd sell them to someone else. And sometimes Oakwood would come back and buy the same building again later after they fixed it up. So Oakwood was
shuffling it around.
Well, for whatever reason. They were so smart. They would be smarter than a small company. They would like put a lot of money into it and then miscalculate. Oakwood would come in again and vulture the thing back for cheaper. Yeah. So they were our best client, Oakwood.
Want us to take that property back off?
That's
your
right.
hands? It's okay. You know. Yeah,
we can do that. You know, it's painful for you.
Loss, but,
Well, you know, for you, nothing is too good. You know. So basically, what they did was, I said to the guy, like, how can you do this? Like, how long is it gonna take you to fill this thing? And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He goes, Paul, this thing is gonna be booked to capacity the day we turn it on. Like the day we connect to the booking system, every single room will be full. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, look, this building that we were selling was next to Roppongi Station in Tokyo. It's very, very interesting, good area.
Yeah.
And it was super close. It was within like probably 40 feet. Okay, there was nothing else that was within 40 feet. This was the closest to Roppongi Station of any building. So he knew corporate guys don't like to walk in the rain. They don't like to sweat in their suit, right? They want to go from the fucking train or, you know, obviously a taxi directly in the building and then walk to the station. So that was it. So he said it's going to be booked. Sure enough, I watched it happen. He turns on the booking thing and they just started lighting up, booking the rooms. Wow. And I was like, no fucking way. Wow. They bought that building for nothing and they made insane money. Like the Japanese were like schooled by these guys. I'm telling you, American real estate companies are very fucking advanced. They're international, they're vultures, they're smart, they're decisive, they're aggressive, and they have very good funding. Like the fund that we dealt with was funded by the California Teachers Association, and it was a retirement fund for them, one of the funds that dealt with them, and they just had endless money to put into properties. So every month they want to go buy a new $100 million property, and they're looking to me like, you got another one? You got another one? You got another one?
If the money's not at play, it's not earning anything, and
that's right.
They need it moving, basically.
Yeah, and not only that, a lot of the funds I dealt with, so imagine there's a million people giving investment of $100 a month. Okay, so you got 100 million coming in every month. So a million people, this is just for, you know, simplicity's sake. You got a million people, each one gives $100 a month to the REIT. That REIT gets $100 million every month, and in their charter it says they can't have more than, let's say, 60 million in the bank. So that means that every month they have to buy a building for $100 million or they have to give it back.
Once
the
it reaches
investors.
target, they pull a trigger on something.
They got to pull the trigger, and they need to have a building to pull the trigger on. So they're very good buyers because they're constantly looking for property. Like they're terrified of not having a property. They got to have a property. This month, another 100 million's coming in. Like, bring us another property, or else we're gonna fucking start talking to other people.
Find someone
Yeah,
else who
we'll
can.
find. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And each 100 million in property was a $6 million commission for us, because we got 3% on the buyer side and the seller side, which was legal in Tokyo. So we
It's legal
So-
in a lot of U.S. states also.
Oh, is it?
If you're representing both sides.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, some states that they don't like you doing it, but California you can do that.
Oh okay.
Dual
Okay.
representation.
No way.
As long as it's disclosed.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's the kind of thinking is you could have as an investor. So you're not going to buy a diamond mine, but you might buy a building that can be repurposed into another business, and you have to be not just a real estate guy, but a business guy. You got to think of what does this area need, what is missing, what could this building do, and then you basically build a business in a block and find somebody and then find somebody who wants to do that. And then you go to him and say, look, I got the perfect business for you, right here. This building, parking structure, whatever, you know. And then the guy's like, oh my God, perfect. Right? So you have to kind of like be an entrepreneur for the entrepreneur, right?
So kind of thinking what is the value add potentially for a specific piece of real estate that you're looking at, whether that's finding something that is under market value, so that might just be the straight value add. You're purchasing it lower than market. When you close, you already have the value add. It could be something that's popular right now in California, basically purchasing a house, but it has a large lot. So with a large lot, California allows you to build additional units, for instance. And that can be a mixture of basically what's called an ADU, additional dwelling unit, or it could be basically adding, turning a single family into a duplex or up to a fourplex in some municipalities. And California, throughout the years, has allowed certain combinations of this. So I do know one of my peers that's in Orange County, and he's an expert with ADUs and doing this. He actually took a property in Huntington Beach, which had a huge lot with available land. And basically, as long as you meet what's called a setback, meaning you can't build it all the way to the street, you can't build it to all the way to your side boundaries, you can't build it all the way to your back boundary. So as long as you're within the setback requirements, California has had to allow it. And he basically had the original house, but he built an additional 12 units on the property. So he turned the original house into a 13-plex pretty much.
Wow.
You can't do it to that extreme now because the regulations changed, but at minimum you can build basically 2 units right now. One basically ADU and one basically a second unit. So if you do have a lot of land available, that's a potential. Unfortunately, COVID and after COVID, construction costs have increased. So again, what we've been talking about, you need to get your numbers correct. Numbers very important. If you get your numbers wrong, you're screwed.
Right. It's all the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's also creativity, because the creativity leads to the numbers. So once you think of a better use for the land, of a different use, higher profit use that makes sense for the area, then you got to do the numbers. And if it's like, there's that, what is that thing, like devil's in the details?
Yep. But yeah, definitely trying to figure out what is the best way to add value to the property. And it's not just one single solution fits all. Basically, it depends. What is the property? Where is it? What does it have now? What can it have? Or what can you turn it into? And a lot of areas, basically, that might just be a zoning change, actually. So some areas, basically, if it is right now is zoned for one property, but everything around it is zoned for 2 or basically a fourplex. If you can get it up zoned, right away you have additional value. You spend maybe $50,000 or $100,000 of legal fees to basically get it rezoned.
Right.
But basically getting it rezoned, but not even doing any construction, you add value to it. So then there's ways to do that also.
Right. And I told you my situation with my old fraternity brother.
Yep.
Yeah, and this was very interesting, kind of similar
Yep.
kind of lines. So you didn't hear this, but so one of my fraternity brothers is now extremely wealthy. He has his own hedge fund. He's like a super connected guy now, politically also. Anyway, I went to see him and I was shocked, because I knew him. We were like buddies in college, right? In the fraternity. And I saw him and I was like, wow, the guy's extremely successful, right? And he said, you know what? He said, you've always been a great friend to me. And he said, if you ever need a approval from the Coastal Commission, what might take you 10 years and you might get turned down, I'll get you in a week. And so he offered this to me personally. And so one of the things I'm looking out for is a property that needs to be rezoned or possibly zoned for Airbnb. So you can, you get the rights to do Airbnb. Something that requires a government approval in California that nobody else can get, I might be able to get. So one of the investments that would be something that I would be interested in working with somebody is if there was other people who were interested in something like that and we found the perfect situation, then we bring it to my buddy Pete and say, could you do this, Pete? We get him to agree. Then we buy the property let's say it's falling into the ocean, and it's a beautiful property and they're requiring you to move out. And then he could say, look, we'll give you a 6-month window to build a retaining wall or something, right? Or, and then nobody else gets that, but you can get that. So I'm interested in buying a property or getting in on a deal that needs a coastal commission approval. And this is like a true story. So I'm actually very interested. So it has to be the right situation. And of course I have to run it by him. I gotta make sure his offer is still valid.
Back to your due diligence.
To my, no, but this is gonna require on the property. I can't just go to him and say, will you approve anything? It's like, no.
Very, very specific. It has to follow the rules, but just speed line them.
I got to be able to go to him and make him an offer with tell him about a property and say, look, would you be willing or interested in it? Would it be possible for you to get, you mentioned possibly helping me get a coastal commission approval. Would this meet, obviously he's not going to do anything illegal.
Yep.
Obviously he's not going to do anything that would jeopardize his situation or my situation.
Yeah.
It has to be something totally legal that usually would require a lot of time, but he can get it through quicker than usual.
Yeah. Right place, the right idea.
It's just the right place, the right idea, totally legal and super smart. So if I have something like that, which if anybody knows, I can present to him, and then we bring it to him and he says yes. If he doesn't say yes, he might say no because this reason, but he's going to be like, holy shit, Paul is smarter than I thought. Like this was a really good idea. And he's a serious fucking guy. And then somebody like this, who's a good friend of mine, he's going to tell me something more.
Give you additional information.
Yeah, either friends to hook me up with, because he's going to be like, holy shit, you really turned into quite the serious business person. I want to, bring you in on this idea or introduce you to this man. When last time I visited him, I had a dinner with the previous Republican whip for the Senate, and we went out to dinner together, and it was super cool.
That's cool.
Super cool. And we've buddied around together. So he really does trust me and respect me, and he was trying to help me, So I'm interested in something like this because for a million reasons. One is because I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and two, once this deal, if it did go through, who knows what's next? Who knows what this will lead to? One good thing leads to another, right? One smart deal leads to another.
Right? And just for clarification, so if anyone does have anything for potential to share, California Coastal Commission basically takes care of approvals for everything that's along the California coastline, all the way from Northern California all the way to Southern California. So anything that's in that territory that would potentially be able to be upzoned or basically have the density changed, that's what would be looked at.
Density and upzoning. Now, how far, what would they not be able to do? What would the Coastal Commission not be able to do? What would he look at me and be like, this guy's a fucking idiot?
So usually what's going to happen is you have two planning authorities. One is going to be your local planning authority. So you mentioned Malibu earlier. So Malibu City basically will have their own city planning and building department. Then on top of that, potentially, because Malibu is located in LA County might have to pass it through the LA County Planning and Building Department. And then once it gets through both of those stages, in a sense, or phases, then it gets sent to Coastal Commission. Usually when it gets sent to Coastal Commission, that's where a lot of these projects run into issues, because Coastal Commission is more strict.
Okay.
And they basically, Coastal Commission is going to care a lot more about basically, what is it? I forget the acronym, but basically air quality. So they're going to care a lot about what's going to affect air quality. They're going to care a lot about what's going to impact the traffic impacts.
SpaceX, right? They were the ones that. Yeah.
So all of those things they're going to care a lot more about. So that might be something that's going to happen if you're building something that's very high density.
Yeah.
Even if city and county approve, but basically Coastal Commission might not like it. So that might be something that needs to be massaged at that level.
Okay.
But usually Coastal Commission only looks at stuff that's already approved by city and then county and then Coastal Commission.
Now I think my buddy will be willing to look at things before that.
Yeah.
If we have a serious group of guys and we say, hey, help me out on this one. Like I really have never done this, and he would be like, I understand. Let me see it. Yeah, and I just say like, we just need 10 minutes, Just focus for 10 minutes, and then he'll be like, this isn't good, but this type of thing would be good. And then set us in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think bringing him in the very beginning would be smart.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to kind of like get it.
And if it's a large enough project, maybe have him as advisory. That might even be something cool.
That was what I was thinking. Somehow involve him in the project.
Give him a small share as an
legally,
advisor.
but bring him in on the project where he would benefit. Right? And that would also, this guy actually doesn't need money. Like I told you right now, this guy has so much money. It's shocking, okay? But it's the idea. It's like not only, like he would look at me, and this is basically people relations and business, like lesson here. Even though it's my situation, it's a real situation. And I think when you think about it this way, you're gonna do better in life. Like, so for example, he comes to me and says, I will do a favor for you. I say, okay, well, here's the favor. Okay, I did it for you. Okay, done. He still thinks this guy's kind of selfish. Like, yeah, I offered a favor and I did it for him. He won. But I want to do something smarter and say, okay, you're offering me something. That's nice. Thank you very much. We were great friends. I can't, I really appreciate it. But you were my friend too. I wasn't just your friend. Like, you're my friend. I like you a lot. I want to hang out with you. I want you to win. Even though you're willing for just me to win. I want you to win.
So everyone to win. That's
and then he says, wow, this guy, he's a real friend. Now he might turn it down and say, I don't need it. I got so much going on. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Or he might say something like, I don't, but maybe put it in my son's name. Or put it in my wife's name. So maybe she could be involved, I'll do the work, and then we could help out, my friend who's got, needs a kidney transplant or whatever. He might, any number of things he might say. But just the idea that I was, I guess, broad-minded enough, smart enough to present it in such a way that would be palatable and legal and also thinking of him. And I might say, now that I think about it, I would say, if you don't want it, if you might want to give it to somebody else you care about, so they could do it, and then, like somebody else could benefit, one of your friends, one of your brother, your dad, your wife, somebody else, right? And then he's like, wow, this is a real offer, he appreciates. And then I say, I really appreciate any kind of help. Like, this is fucking awesome. And when you understand that these things only come once in a lifetime, you will want to be that kind of friend, right? Always think in the broad-minded sense. Like, I want everybody who ever does things with me to benefit. And that's the way I always think about things. And that's basically why I have so many friends. Like, we met so long ago, right? And here we are hanging out, all these years later in Bangkok. and we met online.
Yep.
And then hanging out in California so long ago, right?
Yep.
And then it's like, and you've always been that same way with me. So that's the way, that's basically the way that good people think about business. And that's the way I want you to think. It's not just about business, but it's also about friends and people. And if you always include and be smart and have class, think of others, but also do all the hard work yourself, all the thinking, all the calculating, all the research, and come back, you're always a benefit to have around because you're smart. You fit in. You know what I mean? You always are, like having you around, you know, it's always a benefit for me too.
Yep.
And then people were like, well, I want to have this guy around me. Where it's like if you're helping somebody and then they're always just kind of needing and wanting, it's like nobody fucking wants that. And also they're benefiting more than you. So it makes sense to be generous and say, wait, what can I do? I'm not really the mover and shaker in this situation. So what can I do to help them? They're letting me be here. What can I do to help? I always have that mindset. And I think that's kind of my mindset with my friend. You know, I'm the beggars can't be choosers, right? I'm the beggar in this condition. He's offering a favor to me. But I want to come out of this as like, you know what, when this is done, you're going to understand more about me. And in the future, there are possibilities. I'm the kind of person that can go to the next level. I think that's what you want to show people, is that you are the type of person who wants to continually improve, continually grow. And you think of the long term. So everybody's like, fuck, that was awesome. Like, that was so fucking awesome. Like, I want to do that again. I want to be part of more things. And then when there's other harebrained idea, they're like, okay, from you, I'll listen to this harebrained idea. Because you must have some fucking plan for this. This is not just some fucking crazy, not thought through thing. You know, it might be a dream at this point, but you're going to present it in a way that will not get me my hopes up high. And will always think of me. And speaking of thinking of others, you did check your watch and your wife is waiting. Are you okay for time, or should we move along? Or?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I honestly can't think of what else there is to say. I feel very good about this so far. I guess
A lot of information, so it's good.
What I would like to see in the future would be a group of friends who, as a single person, can't reach the institutional investor level, but as a group could, where you're not buying sucker investments, right? And guys are coming together and saying, 3 guys buy something that they not only could not do, but they would never dream of doing. And then joining the, you know, the what is it called? What's that called when you're at that higher altitude? It's like the purified, the rarefied air of a higher level, and meeting people that are more serious. I can tell you that I gained immeasurably just by talking to institutional investors on a daily basis. You know, because they every day they knew that I wasn't in their class. I hadn't gone to Harvard. I hadn't worked at Goldman Sachs. But they also knew that I had something they didn't have. I had fluent Japanese, and I had sales skills in Japanese, and I had a never give up attitude. I grew, like I came from the streets, from basically trailer park. So I was like trailer park selling Park Avenue. And very few people can go from there to there. And so that gave me a elbow grease level detective work ability that they just didn't have. And to give you an example of what that meant in real life, my competitors, all the guys that worked for me, I've worked in like basically the same position as me. All they did, they were previous investment bankers. They called their friends and they said, what do you got? What do you got? Like, that's institutional grade. And then everything they brought was boring.
And probably stuff everyone knew about already.
It was shopped around. It had been hoarded out. It was like a girl on the pole. She was already used up. And the things that I brought, maybe they were harder to understand. Maybe they required more, focus, but they were fresh.
Yep.
Nobody had seen them. Nobody had looked at them.
Secret sauce.
It was something that no one had seen. And also they knew from knowing me that I was not lying about anything.
Yeah.
Everything was true that I said. I would tell them, hey, look, I don't know this part. We can't know this part yet. But here's what I think. And here's why I think it. And they would be like, that's pretty good thinking. How can we find out? Well, we have to have a meeting with them. Well, okay, when are you going to set up that? And then I did that. And then I ended up getting properties like crazy. And I learned that I learned about Japanese business. So here's one thing I learned that was very interesting. I'm just going to throw in other lessons, and you can throw in other lessons, So I was throwing in people lessons. Here's another lesson that was very interesting. So I told you how I got thrown out of the first office. And
What happened?
well, I said, I went in
Hold on.
to get the
Yeah,
one from the
yeah.
developers, and they were like, we don't have any problems.
Yeah.
We never make any mistakes. Get the fuck out of our office. Right? And then meanwhile, quietly, So
I'll try
then,
to track you
so
back.
I learned about face in real estate. The concept of face is one thing, but how it works in real life is another thing. And that's what I learned about. The real, rubber to the road face. What does that mean? So another thing I learned. So let's say Mr. Tanaka owned a building. Mr. Tanaka had a building, and guess what the name of the building was?
Tanaka Tower.
Tanaka Tower. Tanaka Building. Okay, so Tanaka Building was for sale. Okay, now Tanaka Building was for sale, but no one bought it. Why is that? Well, that's because the price was super high. Because Tanaka secretly had tons of financial problems. Because he had like 6, third wives, and he had, a drinking problem and gambling problem and everything. But Tanaka would never close a deal. Why not? He kept the price high. Why did he keep the price high? He wants to sell the building. It's because he didn't know what to do. Tanaka was in a panic. So I went to Tanaka and I said, Tanaka, I figured this out. This is one I figured out on my own. I said, we're interested in buying your building. He goes, oh, that's great, get in line. And I said, Mr. Tanaka, we're not like the other American investors. I would like to find you a buyer that will keep the name Tanaka Building on your building. So nobody will ever know you sold it. Everybody walks by and Tanaka's still on the building. Okay? You won't lose any face. You can sell the building to this American fund and it will still be called Tanaka Building and nobody will none the wiser. And you'll have money in your pocket from this building. He's like, son, sit down right there. And then we were wheeling and dealing because I was the first guy who understood what face meant when it comes to building owners. That guy, Tanaka, did not care about money. Tanaka had way too much money. He didn't give a shit about money. He was willing to lose, a lot of money on that property. One of the buildings I was looking at, the guy lost $300 million on the property. It was a huge property. But he didn't care about that. But he cared about face. So leaving the name on there. Now, of course, anybody who's a real serious real estate guy could look at property ownership. They're going to find out. But they're also going to see his names on it. And they're going to be like, Tanaka is a fucking wily fuck. He's still got his name on there even though he sold it. What a fucking smart little...
But that's like all the Trump buildings in the world. Trump doesn't own any of them.
Well, that's the thing. It's like being smart. Being smart. Well, Trump is an OPM guy. Other people's money. Yeah, this is a different thing. This is like you're losing, but you don't look like you're losing. You can get rid of a painful situation without the pain. Because for him, money was not a pain. The pain was the loss of face. Yeah. He had money, but his cash flow was not good. So it wasn't like he was broke, but he just didn't have the money in the bank. So he wanted to sell this to get some cash flow. Boom, he's back in business. So that's the kind of thing that you can do as a very smart buyer, is you can find those situations that are painful for people, and no one's going to ever explain this to you. But you have to be smart enough to figure it out on your own. That's how investors at this level think. They're constantly thinking of people. because it's all a people business. Everything is like people.
Yep.
Every part of this business is people, even though it's numbers.
Yep.
It's numbers, but people are behind those, reading those numbers. And how does this guy think? One guy might throw you out of his office, the other guy welcomes you in
Yep.
because he's in a different situation.
Yep.
Other people care about money more than face.
Yep.
They're like, call it whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't care. I want the most money for this building. And you can tell everybody, call my mother, say it was sold. I don't care. Right? So you have to look at the guy, figure out where he's coming from.
Yep.
And he's not going to tell you. Usually.
Yep.
Usually you have to figure it out from clues. Right? So what I'm basically looking for, I mean, the whole reason why I started Ronin, man, is I wanted other guys who thought like me. Okay? That was the beginning. Then after a while I realized my thinking's pretty not bad. I want other guys who have not bad thinking. Right? And then in this case, I'm looking for, you know, me personally, other people that can see through basically the matrix of bullshit in investments. Now, it's not that we're going to do something together, but I want to surround myself with guys who are at the level that I'm talking about. Because I find value in talking to people and being friends with people that can see the world through this lens. I get very tired of talking to people who are stupid, basically. I will do it if I'm being paid. I will do it, but I'm really looking for friends who are extremely smart and on the same level or higher than me. Right? That's what I'm always looking for. So that's kind of what I'm. At the end of the day, I value people more than money. It would be great to do an investment. I would be great to put all my ideas to use. But if we can slowly build a mastermind of people that I'm talking about, that would be super valuable for me and be my ultimate goal, you know? Because then whatever happens, it's going to be good. It's going to be fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Because the intelligence in one area calculates to invest intelligence in another area, right? And maturity in one area means maturity in another. And creativity in one area means creativity in another. And trustworthiness in one area means trustworthiness in every area, right? So that's ultimately if you want to know my selfish goal in this channel, is to find the smartest guys with the best sense of humor and you know what I mean? Smartest with their bodies, smartest with their money, best, think of others, but also find win-win things that they win. Calculate, help, build, avoid stupid people. Because they're time wasters. The more time you spend with them, you can't be this kind of guy. You can't swim if you've got 18 bowling balls chained to your leg. So you have to be able to jettison total losers in your life too. You can't carry them around when you're going to the top. And by the top in this case, I mean the rarefied air of the smartest guys, right? So that's what I'm looking for. If you want to say ultimately, what is Ronin looking for? That's what I'm looking for, right? All right, well look, thanks for being on the episode. Is there anything you want to say in closing? No sales pitches.
Nope, just hope everyone had a good time listening to some of our ideas and can basically think about investments in a different way and hopefully get you to the next level.
Yep, there's so much value in that. Like just seeing the world as it is, seeing the truth, just that alone, even if you do nothing with it, you're no longer confused. You know what I mean? Like just confused by things. I want to understand things, even if that's not my business. You know what I mean? I don't want to be the guy, the NPC walking around like you were saying.
Yeah.
Just kind of confused when
Mindless zombie.
like, yeah, the mindless zombie. Like, I wonder why a guy built this building.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder why these stairs are here.
Yeah, that's
I
part of
wonder
what
why.
started this conversation. Is
Yeah.
I was telling you, like I've been realizing like most people are like basically idiots and they're like NPCs, which is like a non-playable character. So they're on just like a script or like a pattern, like a program, and they just can't seem to even think outside of that. And the more people I interact with like that, the more I'm like, whoa, not only am I not like that, but I don't want to be around people like that. I want to be around the rarefied air. I want to be in that caliber. And the more that you're around those kind of people, the stronger your thinking is, the clearer things get, and you start to see through just all the bullshit and all the just all the things that most people fall for, you know. And it's like I don't want to go down that path. I want to hit those peaks, man.
Right. And the rarefied air is not people with money. It's not a guy who inherited all this money. Like a lot of people think that's rarefied air. It's the builders. It's the builders, the guys who build things, who grow things, who respect things. Those are the guys. Now, some people are builders and haven't built yet, right? And sometimes a guy will inherit money and turn that money into even more money. And one of my skills and one thing I think is very valuable is to see somebody who can do that before they do it. And that's also what I'm looking for, is guys who have that mindset. And I think, in closing, that people that listen to this whole thing, you know, it's a good sign, is all I can say. You know what I mean? If you're still here.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you guys have a great day.